नमस्कार। इंटीग्रेटेड काउंसिल ऑफ प्रोफेशनल अकाउंटेंट्स के एक विशेष कार्यक्रम में, विशेष वेबिनार में आप सभी का स्वागत है। दोस्तों, इस खास वेबिनार में निश्चित तौर पर आप जुड़ें और कई खूबियों को आप जानेंगे, क्योंकि ग्लोबल रिसर्चर और ग्लोबल लीडरशिप इस खास वेबिनार में जुड़े हुए हैं। चलिए हम एक एक करके लोगों का स्वागत करते हैं और कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाते हैं। हमारे साथ खास तौर पर ये पूरे कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए देखिए हैं निशांत राठौर जी हैं। सबसे पहले उनका स्वागत करते हैं। नहीं, प्रवीण झा सर है। प्रवीण झा सर, आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। आप सीए में हैं और निश्चित तौर पर प्रोफेसर हैं और कई तरह के आप लीडरशिप में हैं। काफ़ी आपने बेहतरीन कार्य किया है और आज जो हमारे सीएमए का ये कार्यक्रम है, इंटीग्रेटेड काउंसिल ऑफ प्रोफेशनल अकाउंटेंट का जो कार्यक्रम है, इसके आप मॉडरेट भी करेंगे। प्रवीण झा सर, आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है।
धन्यवाद
सर। आवाज आ रही है?
हाँ, आवाज आ रही है।
चलिए, लग रहा है उनसे हमारी बात नहीं हो पा रही है, वो आवाज नहीं आ पा रही है। चलिए हम चलते सीधे निशांत राठौर जी जुड़े हुए हैं हमारे खास कार्यक्रम में, हम उनका स्वागत करते हैं। निशांत सर, आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है इस खास कार्यक्रम में। आवाज आ रही है सर?
आ रही है सर। थैंक यू मनिंदर जी।
जी हाँ, निश्चित तौर पर देखिए, और उनसे हमारी संपर्क टूट गया प्रवीण झा सर से। उनसे अगर आपसे बात हो जाए तो उन्हें आप मैसेज भी कर सकते हैं। निशांत राठौर जी, आप सचिव हैं, सेक्रेटरी हैं आईसीपीए के और मेंबर नेशनल एग्जीक्यूटिव काउंसिल के आप मेंबर भी हैं। सर, आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है हमारे इस खास कार्यक्रम में। निशांत जी,
थैंक यू मनिंदर जी।
और देखिए इस खास कार्यक्रम में सुनील देशमुख सर जुड़े हुए हैं। सर, आपका भी बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। आप ग्लोबल लीडर हैं और निश्चित तौर पर आप लीडरशिप और एग्जीक्यूटिव काउंसिल्स में तो है ही हैं, लेकिन आप मोटिवेशनल स्पीकर भी हैं और यही खास बात है जो आपको आगे ले जाता है। जी सर। सुनील देशमुख सर, आप आवाज आ रही है सर? आप?
हाँ जी, मेरे को आ रही है आवाज, बिल्कुल।
जी सर, एक शब्द बोल दें सर। जी सर।
थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर इनवाइटिंग मी।
आवाज नहीं आ रही सर आपकी?
आ रही है, आ रही है।
अच्छा, आ रही है। चलिए, और देखिए एक और हमारे साथ जुड़े हुए हैं लेकिन गाने जी, लेकिन लगता है उनसे उनका संपर्क नहीं हो पा रहा है। लेकिन चलिए हम कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाते हैं और सभी गेस्टों का स्वागत करते हुए हम सीधे चलेंगे अपने मॉडरेटर के पास। और प्रवीण झा जी, डॉक्टर प्रवीण झा इस पूरे कार्यक्रम का मॉडरेट करेंगे। निश्चित तौर पर हम उनके पास चल रहे हैं। जी प्रवीण झा सर।
Namaskar and good evening, everyone. It is a privilege to welcome you and all for today's webinar organized by Integrated Council of Professional Accountant.
आ रही सर।
जी सर। जी सर।
On the very
पूरे कार्यक्रम का आप मॉडरेट करें और
बताएं कि
क्या कुछ आज आप बताने वाले हैं। जी सर।
In a world that is changing faster than ever, the ability to lead with clarity, resilience, and purpose is no longer optional. It is essential. Whether you are a seasoned finance professional, a business leader, or an aspiring executive, today's session has something valuable for each one of you. I'm truly honored to introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Sunil Deshmukh. Dr. Deshmukh brings with him over 3 decades of real-world leadership experience across some of the most dynamic markets in the world: Africa, Asia, Middle East, and Asia. He has held some of the most senior positions like CFO, CEO, Group CEO, and has worked with globally recognized organizations including McDonald's India and Foster's Beer, among others. He is the Global Chair Emeritus of the Institute of Management Accounting USA and was the first Asian to serve as its Global Chair. His deep expertise in strategy, governance, and leadership makes him uniquely positioned to guide us on today's topic. Beyond the boardroom, Dr. Deshmukh is a certified Master Executive Coach, a trained leadership practitioner from Oxford, and a visiting faculty member at some of the India's finest business schools. He has recently honored with DLIT from California Public University in recognition of his outstanding contribution to management accounting and corporate leadership. He is a leader who has lived the journey he speaks about. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Sunil Deshmukh. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Praveen. Thank you, Nishanji. Thank you, Manvendraji. And I am very thankful to Integrated Council of Professional Accountants for inviting me for this webinar. I will like to go ahead with my presentation. I'm not sure if you can see my presentation or not.
Okay. Hold on, sir. Just before presentation, let me start this inaugural thing. How we are going to proceed? 1 second.
Yes.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Okay, good evening, everyone. What a wonderful theme for today, leading through disruptive change. And honestly, is there a more perfect moment in history to be talking about this? We are living it every single day. Before we dive in, I want to take just a couple of minutes to say something close to my heart. Why ICPA exists and where we are headed together. So I will talk about mission and vision of ICPA, and then how it is related with today's webinar. So our mission is simple but powerful. We are here to develop talent, to promote excellence, to bridge the gap what academia teaches and what industry actually demands. Think about it. How many of us stepped out of education and felt that gap? That moment where theory met reality and you had to figure it out on your own. ICPA exists so that no finance professional has to navigate that alone. We believe in continuous learning, not as a checkbox, but as a mindset. We believe in skill development that keeps you relevant, not just today, but 5 years from now. And we believe in the power of genuine human connection, because your network, your community is often your greatest professional asset. We are building that community, diverse, tech-enabled, deeply committed to each other's growth. Now I will talk about our ICPA vision. So our vision, and that is where it gets exciting. We don't just want to make good accountants or good finance managers. We want to make strategic leaders. Leaders who don't just read financial statement, they shape the decision behind them. Leaders who embrace AI not as a threat, but as a tool. Leaders who understand cybersecurity not as an IT problem, but as a boardroom responsibility. Leaders who drive innovation, collaboration, and growth, redefining what finance looks like in the new world. And how do we get there? Through exactly what we are doing right now. Gathering minds, sharing knowledge, challenging each other, staying curious, and refusing to be left behind by change. Every webinar, every workshop, every conversation in this community, that is a mission and vision coming alive. So, as we begin today's session, I want to leave you with this. Disruption is not the enemy, stagnation is. The finance professionals who will lead tomorrow are the ones who choose to show up, learn, and grow today. And the fact that you are there, that already says everything about the kind of professionals you are. Let's make today count. With this, I hand over to Sunil sir.
Yes, thank you very much. And I think I need to enlarge my PowerPoint. I don't know how it comes. Can you see my presentation?
Not yet, sir. Same way, sir, as you did earlier.
So it is there. I can see in my box, but if I click it, it is not enlarging.
Maybe it will take some time. I think it. I don't know how to help.
Sir, why don't you send in the group? Nishant will upload from his side, if possible.
Okay, give
But
me a
same, it will
moment.
work the same way. I think already Sunil sir was able to
Mm.
add in the presentation. I think it's loading of the document is taking time. That is the problem. In the meantime, you can start. I think, sir. Will
Yeah, I'm just trying to send it in the group in the meantime, in case it works. So I have sent it in the group now.
okay. Let me check, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, it's a big file, 38 MB. That's why it's taking time.
Yeah, it's a big file.
Non issue. Let me check. Okay. Let me.
So anyway, I think we will start.
Yeah, you can start, sir. In the meantime, it will get uploaded.
Yeah. So thank you very much. And there's a very famous quote by Persian poet Rumi, 13th century Persian poet Rumi, which says that yesterday I was clever. Yesterday I was clever. I wanted to change the world. Yesterday I was clever. I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise. I want to change myself. Today I am wise. I want to change myself. So the disruption is something like this. At present, the disruption is happening at the world, and disruption is also happening to us as an individual also. So we need to learn how to change ourselves. We need to learn how to see what change is happening in the world, and disruption is everywhere. The simple definition or meaning of the term disruption is basically disturbance, something which is not normal, something which is not moving as per our desired expectation, something which is broken down, something where there is an interruption is happening, system failure is happening, an event which is not in our control is happening, or even a process failure is happening. And we as a finance professional, we understand if a processes fail, what happens. Now, technology is also adding a lot of confusion to all these things, which is a big, big issue to all of us. But disruption is everywhere, and the problem is disruption has become a new normal now. And we cannot say that we don't want to work under disruption, or we are not ready to, you can say, adopt to the disruption. We have no other option but to adopt to work within the disruption. And that's where the biggest problem is seen, and most of the people are sort of getting confused how to work in disruption, how to find out way out in the disruption, and all those things. Now, the biggest problem of disruption is adaptability. Adaptability is your ability to work with the situation in a given situation. How do you manage? How do you settle? And how do you work with the system? So today's leaders' biggest challenge is how does the leadership adapts to the external changes as well as internal changes. Changes may come from anywhere. Changes may come from technology side. Changes may come from geopolitical side. Disruption may come from areas which are not known to you. For example, we had a big disruption in our history, which was the COVID. The COVID lockdown was the biggest disruption. And we all learned how difficult it was to adapt during the COVID time. But because it was a survival game, we had no other option but to adopt. And we quickly adopted. But today, post-COVID, there are multiple disruptions are happening. Today, classic example is the geopolitical disruptions are happening. Tariffs is another disruption. Supply chain, biggest impact on supply chain of the world is a big disruption. multilateral trade is now converted into bilateral trade. So these are all disruptions which are happening, and biggest one which is we are all facing is cyber security, artificial intelligence, data analytics. So these types of disruptions are coming and hitting us, and disruptions evolve over a period of time. It is not necessary that we don't see the disruptions. We have seen disruption. World War I, World War II was a disruption. There were multiple disruptions happened in 2008. There was a currency crisis, currency collapse happened in the Asia. That was a disruption. Then we had a big disruption of .com technology came early 2000. Then we have a disruption of digital platforms coming in, which we call platform economy. So many platforms came in, and like for example, Amazon or any other digital platforms. We have Paytm or we have Google Pay, which are huge disruptors in our world. So disruption is not always negative. Disruption can be positive also. And as we rightly says, in the crisis, the innovation happens, and even our ability to find creative ways of doing the things also creates. Disruptions evolved over a period of last 40, 50, 100 years, but particularly in last 20 to 30 years, we are seeing the disruption has become a new normal. It is happening so quickly. Before we realize the first disruption has happened, the second disruption has happened. Like for example, COVID was what, 5-6 years back, 2019, 2020, we had a COVID, but we now are in 2026. We had multiple disruptions happening after COVID, and we are still getting out of the hangover of the COVID, and there are so many other disruptions are impacting. So we had a business model disruptions. We have obviously the societal disruption. The society is going through a churn. Multiple countries are going through multiple problems. We have a biggest disruption in regulatory side also. Tariff is, for example, a regulatory side disruption. ESG is a regulatory side disruption, you can say. We can have a black swan effect. For example, the COVID was a black swan effect. So all this thing, what is happening is, in this process of disruption or in this era of disruption, the leader's role becomes very, very important. As a leader, as a finance leader, as a corporate leader, as a chief financial officer, or as a chief executive officer, the leader must come out with a growth mindset. And it is very, very important. If the leader comes with a fixed mindset and not ready to accommodate the disruptive changes within his or her organization, there is going to be definitely a problem. So we use the beta of disruption. Beta is basically a permanent state of mind where the disruption or change keeps on happening, and we must adapt to that change on a regular basis. So it's a beta of disruption. And what happens is, during this type of disruption, okay, thanks, we got the slides. I'll just try to go ahead. Yeah, so the greatest leaders are not those who avoid disruption, but those who transform disruption into an opportunity. So this is very important, and this is again talking about the adaptability of the disruption. The world has changed. Disruption is no longer a condition, no longer an event. It's a regular condition. Stability is temporary and change is a continuous one. So we have to be, adaptability is the new competitive advantage. We must adapt. This is somewhat, you can say, evolution of disruption during 1980 to 2000, what happened during 2000 to 2015, particularly digital disruption, the internet, mobile, and 2015 onwards, we have seen multiple disruption, right from COVID to technology to society to geopolitics. And disruption has become from an episode once in a lifetime to now a constant. It's happening very regularly. Not all disruptions are bad. Not all disruptions are equal. There are technological disruptions. There are business model disruptions, like I was talking about the platform economy. The Amazons of the world, Zomatos of the world came and created a new different business model platform, which was previously not seen by our people. Societal disruptions are happening. Demographic shifts are happening. Regulatory disruptions and black swan disruptions, which is basically the pandemic type of disruption. Now, disruption has become a new normal, and organizations need to no longer arrive, but they have to live with, they have to evolve with the disruption. And today's innovation is tomorrow's baseline. And that's where I was talking about the permanent beta. Permanent beta is basically a mindset where you have to continuously think, learn, adapt, and keep on improving. That's called beta mindset. Now, there are different zones of disruption. Disruption may happen, for example, in operation side. If you are a manufacturing company, you may have a disruption within your manufacturing facility. You may have disruption in your supply chain. In today's world, supply chain disruption has become a huge nightmare. And post-COVID, we all have realized that how important is the supply chain as far as the world trade is concerned. And we are seeing today what's happening in the world because of the war and because of the multiple activities happening around that side. We can have a market disruption. For example, you have a market in a particular area, and that and that market is not available to you suddenly because of the external condition. Your business got disrupted. So you need to find out very quickly, pivot very quickly, where is the new market available to me? Can I go and do the business in a market which is not known to me? So market zone disruption is also become very common now. And problem with market zone disruption is you cannot suddenly create a new market, either an international market or a local market. It takes time to create a market. So how does the leader handle this type of disruption is a big question. Then we have, of course, workforce disruption. We have nowadays Gen Z, and there are multiple generations working in an organization, right from Gen Z to the senior most people. How do you manage this transition and these people's mindset? Because Gen Z's expectations are different. Different people's other generations people's expectations are different. But as a leader, as an organizational head, as a CFO or as a CEO, one need to manage all these people together. So workforce disruption is not seen very openly, but it is behind the scene working very silently, and sometimes it may burst into a big problem. And then we have, of course, a leadership zone or leadership disruption. The leaders are typically taught in a B school or any professional degrees how to take the decision, what happens around those things. But leaders were never taught how to take the decision during COVID time, or entire world is shut down. So these types of decision-making zones where you are not been trained, even leaders are struggling to take the decision. Classic example is the geopolitical disruption of your shipping side or your imports and export. No one knows what to do that because it is not in the circle of influence of a leader. It's beyond the control of the leader. And I of late started talking that today's leaders, today's CXO level people, they need to think like a diplomat. They need to understand the geopolitics. In past, the corporate leaders were never taught geopolitics. Whatever they will learn on their own because of their interest, that was a different story. But today, I think a time has come to teach to the corporate leaders, finance leaders, what is geopolitics, how the geopolitics impacts the economy of the country and eventually your own company and your own organization. Now, what happens when you are going through a disruption and severe disruption, your value system only will be your sustainability or your stability. So in chaos, value creates the stability. So an organization needs to have a very fixed, very solid value system. And these values will stick and hold the organization during the disruption. So for example, let's say Tata Group is a trusted brand. We all know that. Crisis during right from 26/11, what happened in Mumbai, all the way to COVID attacks. Tata Group always earned enormous goodwill because of their human-centric approach to the people. So what is your value system of your organization, be it integrity, be it trust? And I always make a statement, it is very difficult to create the trust, but it takes no time to break the trust. There is a very famous Dutch proverb that trust comes walking and lives on the horseback. So it can break very fast. So how do you create trust? Empathy towards your employees, right? Courage within the organization, how to take the risk, how to move forward, how to manage the external environment. You need courage for that nowadays. A lot of companies are facing problems. They're confused. They don't know what to do and what not to do. And what is your purpose? For what purpose you have started the organization? You should never forget that purpose. And at the beginning, rightly, Nishant sir talk about your organization's vision and mission. So exactly same thing. What is your purpose? Why you have formed the organization? You should never forget during the disruption that this was the purpose we formed our organization, and we should live with that. That's very, very important. And we have seen there are multiple disruptors who have changed the world. I always use the example of Mahatma Gandhi. He was the biggest disruptor in the world, in the sense during the Britishers when they were ruling. He created a new model called non-violence and non-cooperation, which was never known to the British people how to handle this model. So it was a big disruption for them. And because of that disruption, we got the independence. So we should respect disruption is not always negative. It helps. Current Prime Minister also has created a lot of disruption by way of policy scale disruption, even the Paytm or the digital payment mechanism, the GST of the India. So there are multiple things, Sachin Tendulkar, Vaibhav Suryavanshi, I'm just giving examples from the cricket world. But disruption is not always a destruction. It can be a transformation for you also. Now, the biggest problem of disruption, which we all really, struggle to handle, is the speed of disruption. And we all, as a finance professional, as a management accountant, chartered accountant, or whatever, we understand risk management, enterprise risk management, and all those things. But here the risk is not the disruption. Here the risk is the speed of disruption. The problem is organizations work with their own speed, right? Their inertia, their methodology of working is particular way. But the external change happening in the disruptive world is so big that they are not able to manage that speed. And because of the speed, they fall behind. One need to understand, and there's a very famous saying, I think it was by GE founder. He said that when the rate of change of outside world, or when the speed of change of outside world, and when the speed of change inside the organization does not match, or if your inside speed is lesser than outside speed, and it says that it is you're going towards the closure of your organization or the death of your organization. Like for example, Jio came into the mobile phone, and you know how they transformed the telecom pricing and telecom consumption. The speed with which they came, it was tremendous, and people were not able to understand how to handle it. Some of the example of disruption in India, we know Zomato has created during the pandemic. They have completely reinvented the delivery and dining model. Infosys pivot from services to digital transformation, right? Reliance shift from petrochemicals business to digital ecosystem. So reinvention is a strategic and not accidental. Organization need to find out the new way of doing the business. And disruption instigates you to think differently. If you don't think differently, you are going to become bankrupt, or you are going to become outdated, obsolete very soon. So one of the biggest thing which I propagate and which I talk across the globe wherever I go and give the lectures, teach, and all those things is the concept called corporate sense making. Now we talk common sense very oftenly, and we all know what is common sense and what is not common sense. But what happens is basically common sense is uncommon, and we all know that. I mean, there is no doubt about that. But the corporate sense making is an ability of the leader how to bring sense to the organization. And here I'm talking about a leader need to make sense, or leaders are the meaning makers. They have to find out a meaning. You have incomplete data available. The signals are noisy. Outcomes are uncertain, right? You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know when the war is going to stop. But leaders need to interpret the ambiguity. They need to connect the dots. They need to create the clarity. And they need to communicate with the direction, which is very, very important. So leadership is all about answers and framing the right questions. I think there is someone talking in between. I'm getting some. Yeah.
इतना पावर है कि दिखता भी नहीं.
हाँ मनोज जी, हेलो.
जी जी जी.
ये आपका आवाज आ रहा है, थोड़ा म्यूट कर लीजिए.
So in a corporate sense making disruption, the leaders need to make the sense of what is happening in the environment, which is your external environment. Make the sense of what the customers are expecting from you very quickly. Make the sense of your people, your staff, your managers, your employees, your workers. Make sense of the data. There is so much data available in the world now. You are suddenly flooded with the data. And I use the terminology called infodemic. There is a pandemic of information. And we as a finance professional, we interpret the data, we collect the data, and we make a meaning out of data. Our role has become more difficult and more complicated to go and tell the leader with the CEO or the board of directors that based on this data, this is what is likely to happen. But for that, the problem is you are having too much data now. So you have to clean the data, you have to interpret the data, and you have to create a story out of data, which is sellable story, or which you are able to persuade or convince to the stakeholders. So it's a huge, huge problem. Sense of direction, which direction our organization should go in this given period of time, is a big, big problem. Many organizations are confused. They don't know what's going to happen to them. So sense of speed, how fast the external change, for example, artificial intelligence. We all talk about AI. How fast AI is going to come and change the way of doing the business, way of doing the work. The speed is tremendous, and every day there is change happening in AI. So how does a leader, as a CEO or as a CFO, how does he or she can make a sense? That's the new skill set I am saying that needs to be developed, needs to be addressed. And I have written a full chapter on this topic called corporate sense making in a book published by Oxford University, along with my Oxford professors and some of the alumni. And I have written a full research-based chapter on topic called Mastering the Power of Corporate Sense Making. This is a topic not new, but not very well known into the world. There is a behavioral scientist in America by name Carl Weick. He developed a framework of corporate sense making. And based on that framework, I have done a lot of research and then published this book or this chapter on that. Now, during the disruption, how does the leader respond is very, very important. Of course, they need to have sense. They need to do the corporate sense making. But leader first need to, before they respond, they need to understand what is disruption is. They need to understand what exactly is happening in the market or in the external environment. What is my role in that? What I am interpreting, how I am interpreting. So they need to understand, not by only reading the newspaper. Reading the newspaper or watching the TV is one of the basic way of getting the information. But leaders need to have their own way and mechanism of talking to people, maybe Chamber of Commerce, maybe an organization like ICPA, or maybe you are any of the chapter members and all those things. Discuss, debate with people. Hey, I am seeing this change. How do you see this change? And then create a meaning out of that. Then leader also need to stabilize the operations. Now knowing there is a disruption happening, how do I stabilize my operation? How do I ensure the stability is there in my business? Then they need to build the confidence in the minds of the people, because ultimately work is done by the people in the organization. So they need to build that confidence in the minds of people. And last but not the least, create a future readiness. If tomorrow something happens, how am I going to handle this? Am I ready for this? Are my systems, processes, my resources, my tools, my technology, is it ready for me to?
It is not justified. He's asking for this.
So this is the framework of 4 pillars of leadership in disruption: navigate, manage, inspire, and transform. One of the important aspects in the disruption most of the leaders forget is the human aspect. See, we as a human being, we all possess fear of uncertainty. Psychologically, it is proved that human beings love status quo. जो चल रहा है वो चलने दो. I don't want change in my life. I don't want change in my way of working. So people fear uncertainty. That's the emotional side. Loss of identity. मेरा job जाएगा. What will happen? Who will know me? Who will respect me? And all those things, right? Resistance to change. People are resistant to change. They don't want to change. Now, this is the emotional side. But as a leader during the disruption, leader's role is to ensure there is a psychological safety given to the people. There is a clear-cut communication. Transparency is very, very important. And there is an empathy shown to the people. Now, good thing is post-COVID, the empathy aspect has been learned much better by all human beings, all leaders, all organizations. And I would say they are fairly better the empathy aspect of that. But when people feel they have been seen, they have been heard, they have been supported, obviously they are ready to adopt and change themselves. So disruption is inevitable. We cannot avoid disruption, but we cannot be left behind also during the disruption. So in a future-ready organization, when there is a disruption is happening, what winning organizations do is, future-ready organizations are not built during the disruption, but they are revealed by it. Means they are showing that, oh, this is happening, we are ready to handle this, we are ready to cope up with. They have an agile structure. Agility is your ability to change quickly. So they are flexible business model, transportation, supply chain, production, whatever, capacity management. There is a continuous learning culture. You have to learn. Organizations need to learn not only at the top level, but at all levels in the organization. So they have learning platforms. They spend money, time, commitment towards the ensuring the education to their own employees. And this is practical education. Technology adoption mindset, very important. AI is coming, cyber security is hitting us. How do we adopt to this technology and ensure that our business stability and sustainability is continued? And fourth thing, which has become very important in last 4 to 5 years, is decentralized decision making. Most of the organization decision making is in the hands of one person sitting somewhere in Delhi, Mumbai, or wherever, New York, Singapore, whatever. But in today's world, each city, each country, or each territorial geography is working independently because there are so many disruptions happening. So you need to give empowerment to your local leaders, be it India leader, be it a Singapore leader, be it a Middle East leader, to take the decision at that level. And this, so that's called decentralized decision making, which is a new need which has arisen. And many companies I am seeing, they're failing to do that. They still want to control everything from a central office or headquarters. But like, for example, supply chain disruption. If there's a supply chain disruption in a particular market, that leader in that market need to take the decision, and not the one someone sitting who 5,000 kilometers away and who does not understand what exactly is the problem. So shift in a leadership mindset also is very important. During the disruption, a leader need to think not from a control point of view, but from an adaptability point of view. And which is where also in a decentralized decision making, adaptability becomes very important. From planning to experimentation, sometime during a disruption, you need to experiment. You're sitting only in the office and creating, you can say, if and but analysis or scenario planning is good on a piece of paper. But in real life, what is going to work? Someone need to experiment that. So leader need to think how to experiment that. And from authority to influence, how do I inspire people? How do I convince people that we have to create something new? We have to adopt, we have to change. So that is also become very, very important. So closing thoughts, in a leadership call, disruption is inevitable. You and me cannot control the disruption. We are part and parcel of the disruption. So we have to live with it. Transformation is optional, and leaders need to take a decision, and they need to stand still. When we are going through a problem, don't fall down. Hold on to that situation and start working towards how to improve this. So this is a summary slide. Disruption is no longer temporary. It's a new normal. We need to remain competitive. We need to adopt faster. Disruption has got multiple zones, so we need to operate. Agility is the key. Mindset is important. How to create a stability during uncertainty is very, very important. And there are multiple ways of managing it, and we have seen the framework of leadership, how to manage that. So with this, I think I have finished my presentation, and we have a time for now Q&A. Over to you, Praveenji. And if you want, if the listeners want to connect with me, they can scan. This is my LinkedIn scanner. This is my email address, and this is my website. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was a very learning moment for everybody. We never know about the disruption before in that much detail. There was a lot of questions coming on from the audience, but as you proceeded, and all the questions were already answered by you. But some of the questions I have compiled for them.
Sure.
So you mentioned that disruption is inevitable. We cannot fully nullify any risk. However, we can mitigate. So can you give some framework for a company how they can mitigate the risk? Because the technology is changing, environment is changing, everything is changing. If there is any framework, sir?
No, so there are multiple frameworks. I have given one framework within my presentation, how the leaders need to navigate, manage, and all those things. That is one framework from a leadership point of view. But from an individual point of view, there can be multiple frameworks. There are I would say every month there is new framework coming up now, how to handle disruption. But I would say first and very simple common sense is during disruption time, try to create some scenario planning within your organization, within your department. And based on that scenario planning, you see what is easy to implement, what is easy to work with. Follow that first. Rather than most of the frameworks today developed are theoretically there. In reality, they might not, because every framework is a new one. They also need to be tested and all those things. It's like a COVID vaccine. No, we have to expedite the creation of vaccine because people will die. So it's something like that is happening as far as the frameworks are concerned. But I would say that do cost benefit analysis. Great way of explaining on the screen. I saw that. do scenario planning, and do a lot of corporate sense making. Ask your competitors, or competitors in the sense, ask your industry friends, chambers of commerce, how they are doing, what is working for someone. There is no need to feel that threatening of the competition. Competition ko pata chalega to mera kya ho gaya and all those things. It is not necessary nowadays. We live in a collective world where knowledge is ubiquitous. Everyone has got ChatGPT. Everyone can ask question to ChatGPT. It's right or wrong, that's a different story. But what I'm saying is, there is too much information, too much knowledge. As a leader, we need to know what is right for my organization and my department and use that.
I think Nishant has some questions for you, sir. Yeah, you are on mute, Nishant.
Yes, sir. Well said. I have some questions. Like, we often talk about AI and technology as a tool for disruption.
Yes.
But in your experience, what is the bigger barrier to change in the finance profession? The technology gap or the mindset gap? And how do leaders bridge that?
No, great question, Nishanji, and thanks for asking that. I'll tell you, I deal with so many people nowadays. The biggest barrier is mindset and not the technology. Of course, technology has got limitation, because how much a company will invest money in buying the technology, and if technology is changing every 3 months, 6 months, how much money company will invest? That's a question mark. But today there is a lot of technology available to you at a very cheap price, or a lot of technology is available to free of cost also. But the mindset of the people to adopt to that technology is not there. And I always make a comment: don't compete with artificial intelligence. Don't compete with artificial AI, but complement AI. So you will not lose your job because you're not adaptive to AI. You will lose your job because someone else is doing AI better than you. So I think adaptability and mindset is a big issue. And as a human being, it is the mindset which creates a lot of hindrance in us. So one need to have a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. I will not do this, I will not do that, and all those things. Nowadays, whatever knowledge you have earned in past is becoming obsolete very quickly. Today, I can tell you very openly, sir, if I ask a young finance professional how to do the trial balance or how to do the bank reconciliation, I doubt how many of, I'm not doubting their capability, but it is not being taught to them, because everything is done by computers nowadays. So same way, a lot of things are happening behind the screen. And then what happens? Your mindset is that, oh, machine is doing that, why should I do that? So these are the issues. Mindset change is a slow process. A leader need to be very, very driven to convince people, to inspire people to change the mindset. Particularly during the disruption, it becomes very, very important. Great question. And I think mind shifts change is the most alarming area in today's world, not only in everywhere.
And if you permit, I would like to add something to your
please.
statement, your reply, that yeah, there is a perception. Actually, we should not misinterpret this AI. We should make it as it's artificial intelligence, a intelligent assistant. So it is up to you how you train that thing, because technology adoption is also necessary. Yes. But how you use, so that is more I think crucial thing. Yes. Because it's a very, we can say it's a both sides sword, so it's we have to very grateful working. Yeah, we need
yes.
to take care.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for response.
Thank you,
sir. I will not take you much of time. Last question, because it will be very hard to find the answers from you again. So the disruption is a new normal for everybody, including the corporates. So what is the general practice now? Are they making some fund for to tackle the disruption, or of course there will be a planning, but everything requires the fund. So how they do? They allocate fund for that in advance, or how it works?
So great question, Praveenji, and thanks for asking that. And we as a finance professional, obviously numbers, money, monetary value is very, very important. Many organizations, many good organizations, many professional organizations have started creating some sort of emergency fund. whatever name you give is irrespective of whatever you call the emergency fund or you call disruption fund or whatever you want to call that. But in a budget process at the beginning of your financial year, when you do the planning and budgeting process, they are creating a amount, they're earmarking some amount towards this type of disruption, and no one knows what's going to happen. And also there is no methodology how to define how much money I should keep in that fund, right? Because no one knows. But a thumb rule, depending on your top line, depending on your bottom line, how much money you are able to contribute. But companies are thinking differently now that we need to create some fund in case of emergency. Now, but that is within the organization. I am even saying externally, forget about there are a lot of private equity funds now. They are creating funds for artificial intelligence and all those things. A lot of governments are earmarking the funds, right, for creating something very, very different. Like, for example, I always give this example. During this year's financial budget, our respected finance minister has created a 50 years tax exemption for setting up the data centers in India. Now that is a way of creating indirectly a security to you, because now we have passed the DPDP Act, Data Privacy Data Protection Act, and we want all our data to remain within our country. So they have given a benefit, tax exemption, tax benefit for 50 years if you set up the data centers within our own country. So this is one way of creating a mechanism of protecting or creating a fund. Fund means here it is not monetarily fund, but companies will get benefit by not paying income tax for 50 years, which is a big thing. So there are multiple ways are happening, but unfortunately, it has not become public in a big way. Not everybody is doing that. Some few instances are seen, but good organization. I deal with a lot of companies, and I advise many companies. Many professional companies are setting aside X amount of their budget towards contingency, which is not known to them. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. So now it is the time for the closing remarks. Mr. Kushwaha is not here on his behalf. I will be giving the vote of thanks also. Dr. Deshmukh, on behalf of the Integrated Council of Professional Accountants and every participant here today, thank you for sharing your wisdom, your experience, and your time with us. We are truly grateful. This has been a great evening, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you very much. I really appreciate Praveen ji, Manvendra ji, and Nishan ji. Looking forward to meet you sometime.
Sure.
जी बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। देखिए, इंटीग्रेटेड काउंसिल ऑफ प्रोफेशनल अकाउंटेंट्स का ये विशेष वेबिनार था जिसमें कई लोग अभी जुड़े हुए थे, लोगों के प्रश्न भी आ रहे थे। इस खास सेशन में डॉक्टर सुनील देशमुख ने, जो आप ग्लोबल चेन में हैं, काफ़ी एमिरेट्स और IMA US से जुड़े हुए हैं और आपने महत्वपूर्ण समय निकाला है। आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर। प्रवीण झा सर, आप पूरे कार्यक्रम का मॉडरेट कर रहे थे, कई प्रश्नों को आपने लिया भी, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। निशांत राठौर जी, आप सचिव हैं, सेक्रेटरी हैं ICPA के और मेंबर नेशनल एग्जीक्यूटिव काउंसिल के। सर, आप सबों का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया है और हम चाहेंगे कि ऐसे ही आप आगे भी आते रहें ICPA के खास कार्यक्रम में, और फिजिकली भी जो कार्यक्रम होता है उसमें भी सक्रिय रूप से आप भाग लें और अपनी बात को रखें। और खासतौर से अकाउंटेंट का CA के लिए जो ये मंच है, इंटीग्रेटेड काउंसिल ऑफ प्रोफेशनल अकाउंटेंट्स, ये अपने आप में अद्भुत है। ये मुकेश कुशवाहा सर ने आज जुड़ना चाह रहे थे, हालांकि वो नहीं जुड़ पाए। आप बस चलते चलते यही कहेंगे, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। गुड नाइट, शुभ रात्रि, सब खैर।
Bye bye. I'll close now.